All right, welcome guys. Welcome to the Roatan Island podcast. Welcome to our second episode today. We have a lot in store for you guys. We actually have our first guest, and we're going to introduce her in just a second. Before we get started, we would like to thank the Galaxy Ferry and also Brady's Key for being some of our sponsors from the beginning, for believing in us from the get-go. Guys, we appreciate you guys a lot, and we will be telling you guys all a little bit about them through our social media. So make sure and follow us, like, and subscribe, and all the above, right? So guys, tonight we have a very special guest. We have Jerrica Warren here with us, the author of this wonderful book right here. Miss Jerrica.
Hi.
All right. So guys, whoa. Well, there we go. There's all my Pepsi now. I'm still gonna drink it.
Extra protein.
Yep, that's extra protein.
That is a lot more than I thought it was going to be.
All right, guys. So, getting back to it, Miss Jerrica has dedicated now. How long, Miss Jerrica? Probably about.
It's gonna be 8 official years in around March, somewhere beginning mid-March. I didn't get the date. I should have, but yeah, and then like unofficially for about a year before that too.
Okay, so we can say 9 years.
Yeah.
More or less. So you've dedicated the last 9 years of your life to really kind of understanding the history of the island specifically? Or are we talking about the island specifically? Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, all 3 Bay Islands, yeah.
Perfect. Now, let's just go straight into some controversy here. Do you have a favorite Bay Island?
That one's hard.
Yeah, I knew that was going to be a hard one. I really don't have a favorite one.
They're
I
all
love
different. They're all different. Like Guanaja has a lot of stuff that people haven't discovered yet. And then Utila is really cool because it's so small that you can go anywhere in one day, Like,
Yep.
I mean, you can't find everything in one single day, but I mean, in one day you can be at one end of the island and at the other end, and you can find different things.
I got you. Yeah, that's kind of what I love about Utila. Isaac and I go to Utila all the time. If you guys follow us on our personal social media, you guys probably have seen stories and photos of us in the caves and all kinds of stuff on Utila. Pizza Nut, shout out to Pizza Nut. Best
good.
pizza in this world, I swear.
Yeah. Utila is home away from home for us.
Oh yeah, at one point we were going to Utila like 5 times a year, literally, because it's like the easiest vacation for us.
Yeah.
We just jump in the ferry and it's like an hour and we're there, and then you can just relax. And the people there are so nice. We have
Very
so much
welcoming.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much people that we met, right? I saw, and like we now consider them like, I mean, they treat us like if we were friends forever. So that's amazing. Shout out to Utila and all of its lovely people. Guanaja, how many times have you been to Guanaja?
I've only been there once, actually.
Okay.
I spent a couple years researching and reading studies first, and then I went for a couple hours, actually. I went on a private flight for a couple hours to meet some people and talk to people in the fishing industry. And I'm planning another trip, but going to Guanaja, there's so much that's so unexplored that you have to do your research first. You have to make a whole itinerary, and it's really hard to get from one point to another point. So you have to plan it all very well. It's
not as accessible as Utila is in terms of, Utila you can walk from, like we said before, you can walk from one side to the next, basically.
Yeah.
And that's I get it. I've only been to Guanaja once too, and it was just like a couple hours. I went in a boat. It was a charter boat. It was amazing though. We went to I don't know. And for my Guanaja people watching this, I'm sorry, but I did not catch what waterfall I was at. I just one of the waterfalls. So because how many did they have? 3 waterfalls?
They have 3, yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea which one I was at. And then we just spent the rest of the day over on Graham Ski. So it was beautiful. We got to meet the old man Graham before he passed. That was amazing. Beautiful place. So anyhow, I guess I'll start out with one of the first official questions we got for you, which is what made you so passionate about what you do? Like, what made you so passionate about preserving the islands and their history?
Well, at first, everything was always so interesting to read about, about Yabadingdings, about historical places. But then when I moved to the city, I moved to Tegucigalpa when I was about 17 and a half. And people would ask me, like I did my last year of high school out there, people would ask me, where's this? Like, and they would see a picture of mine at a beach. And I'm like, oh, it's a beach called Camp Bay Beach. And they're like, no, this isn't in Honduras. And I'm like, yes, it is. Like, it's on the East End. It's less explored. And you can go up there if you can rent a car. And they're like, there's no way. Like, this looks better than the beaches that we have visited when we're on vacations. And I'm like, there's a whole lot more. There's Paya Bay, there's Marbella Beach.
Yep.
And if you go to the other islands, there's a whole lot more as well. There's nice beaches like Chepas Beach on Utila, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And they're like, there's no way, like we didn't know, you know? So they would ask me to share stuff. So I opened up an Instagram and I would share pictures of different places, and I would ask my family, like, can you guys take me here, take me there? And we would go, we would take pictures, we would go with my friends. And it kind of started off like that. And then they asked me for more information. So I started up a blog. I think I had it on Blogger at some point, and then I moved to, what was the other, WordPress. And then from WordPress, I ended up at Wix. Which is the last place where I had it. But I would write full articles and I would let them know how much it costs to go to this restaurant, to buy something specific, to travel someplace, you know, like Camp Bay, which is a little far away, how long it takes, who do you need to know, like if you want a tour, stuff like that. And it started growing from there. It grew to a Facebook page, the blog. I started getting calls from different businesses asking me to talk about them, to come visit, to come try their food, stuff like that.
That's so cool.
And yeah, people really, really liked it, but it was more people that were outside the island.
Yeah.
And then I started reading when I was 18. I started reading about the history of the Bay Islands. And I said, well, I should write a book about this because I can't find anywhere else where to find information. I didn't publish the book until I was 28, right? So it took about a solid 10 years because it wasn't enough to just know stuff about the island.
Yeah.
You need to go to these places.
And
You need to understand.
Experience it for yourself.
Yeah. So I went to the National Library. I went to the National Archive of Honduras. That's in Tegucigalpa as well. I went to different places and spoke to the older people and see what stories they had. I met a lot of people. I get messages on Facebook sometimes from older people, like Miss Janet Williams. She texted me a couple months ago and she was like, hey, you should come to my house. I'll tell you stories about the island.
That's cool.
That was in Utila. So I just show up to her house and we have conversations and they share stories.
Share a little bit of coffee and bread.
Yeah.
And, coconut bread. Oh, yeah. That's got to be in there. That's really cool. That's really, really nice. We I always respect and I have this great admiration for anyone doing what they love. You know, I think it's great. I think it's absolutely great. So we so just kind of something else going back onto the book. But we heard what made her so passionate about what she did.
Yeah.
But why specifically, like, all right, so you kind of just answered my question for me. So you started this off as a blog.
Yeah.
And then brought it into a book then later on because you just felt like maybe some of the older people on the island who don't understand technology would read it better. Was that kind of like one of the reasons, or you just kind of you love books?
I wanted something where people could go and find the history of the Bay Islands. And I saw a problem that not much people talk about, and it's the fact that when you talk about the Bay Islands history, you talk about the cession of the Bay Islands from England back to Honduras, but you don't talk about who was here before.
Exactly.
Like the origin of the island. Utila has 2 volcanoes.
Wow.
One of them is Pumpkin Hill, and that's how the island was originated, right? This volcano exploded, and then it created the island of Utila. So there's 2 volcanoes they're official volcanoes. They have numbers and everything. They have a registry. And from there, the Pech who came from the north coast of Honduras, and they came to the island and they started moving from the Cays to the main island of Utila, to Roatan, to Guanaja, and you find all these amazing places, where they used to have their settlements. Like in Guanaja, most people don't know that in Guanaja, there's an astronomical observatory.
Oh, wow.
And there are rocks they're aligned with northwest, south, and east. Wow. They were that smart. They were a huge civilization. They exchanged good with the Mayas. There's evidence of that in, I think it's Augusta. Augusta is close to Oak Ridge.
Yeah.
And on the east side of the island, you can find a lot of evidence that the Mayans were here and they were exchanging goods with the Pech. And most people don't talk about it, and it's very important.
So I guess, and Isaac has a question after this, but how would you think, that they got. All right, so I imagine the pitch came from the mainland of Honduras, right?
Yeah.
So, and this is just kind of like what I thought about, I guess. Why do you think they came to the islands? Like, do you think they came here just because, oh, they saw like, something? Because I imagine, back in those days, there was a lot less pollution. I mean, on a good, beautiful early morning, you can see basically the whole coastline like nowadays. So I imagine they probably just saw the islands and were like, oh, that's another country, or that's another land we have to go discover. We have to go, and maybe they just got over here and they're like, oh, this is beautiful. We like it. We live here.
They were originally moving from South America and came here. They have a lot of similarities with the Chibcha, which are from Colombia. So a lot of their words are actually Chibcha words. So the theory is that they came from South America. They started moving in groups, and they eventually ended up in Honduras. So the theory is that they were trying to keep moving up.
Yeah.
So they saw the islands from Ceiba, somewhere around Pico Bonito, and they started inhabiting all these islands.
I got you. That's really cool.
Yeah. So pretty much in the same topic, what do you think kind of led them to just kind of poof? Like, what drove them away, would you say?
Like off the islands?
Yeah.
They weren't driven away. They were killed.
Oh, wow, okay.
Like, for example, one of the stories in that Webb used to tell me, Webb was a really good storyteller from Itola. Webb used to tell me, he told me the story about how he was hired to dig a hole. He was digging a well in the Utila Caves, right? For a man. So he was digging this well, and they found a lot of bones. And one of these bones, there were several bones, but there were also skulls. And one of these skulls was actually for a 3-year-old, either a boy or a girl. And he took the skull home, and he showed it to an archaeologist, a friend of his, and he told him that it must have been like a child of around 3 years old. So these Indians, when Christopher Columbus came, that he mistook the islands for India, and he started calling the indigenous people Indians. There was a law in Spain. King Ferdinand II, he was king at the time that Columbus came. He had banned his people, the people that were navigating the seas, and they were just looking for territories to add them to whatever territories that Spain was gathering at the time. And there was a law that stated that if they found indigenous people anywhere, they could not enslave them unless they were savages. So the Pech's original name is Pech. But if you notice, a lot of people will call them Paya.
Yeah.
Because Paya back then in Spain, it meant savage. So they weren't savages. They were actually very peaceful people. But because they needed to enslave them and take them to their plantations in Cuba, they called them Paya. And they sent back word saying these are savages. They won't let us, indoctrinate them in the Catholic religion. So they ended up taking them to a lot of them, some part of them went to the mainland to be enslaved, and some part of them went to Cuba to die in plantations. Some of them died from diseases that the Spanish brought from Europe. Yeah. And the ones who opposed, they were killed in groups, and their bones were thrown into wells.
So that's why Webb found what he found then.
Yeah.
Oh, that's sad. Crazy that they even did kids, wow, the world was such a cruel place.
Yeah, times are tough.
Yeah, that's for sure. And we think we have it hard, I guess. We're so blessed. So you just said most of them went over to Cuba, right? Some of them was driven over to the mainland, or like, do you think that, I think I read something a few days ago where at Grand Roatan, they dedicated like a spa to the Pech Indians. And I think they brought over like an elder or something to see it. So there is still a number of Pech here in Honduras, right? Do you know more or less like how much or where they are? And
I can't give you a number, but I know it's very little of them, like around 10,000 or maybe less than that. Oh. They're scattered in between the North Coast. Some of them are in Trujillo, and there's a good amount of them in Olancho, in a place called, I think it's Triunfo de la Cruz or something like that.
So it is important that our viewers know that there is a difference between the Pech Indians and what's left of them. And what is most famously known here in the island is the mosquitoes.
Oh yeah.
Because the mosquitoes, from what, and please correct me if I'm wrong, they're descendants of the Lenca Indians. Am I right with that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, there's a theory that is still being investigated because the scientists here, they believe that the Pech were the ones who originally inhabited Ciudad Blanca, and it wasn't the mosquito people.
Okay.
And that they were both at war at the time. So that's why the Pech started moving away from Ciudad Blanca, and they made their way out of it and started coming up north.
I got you. All right.
Well, after the Pech and that were, they've kind of like ran off or exterminated essentially.
Yeah.
What were the islanders after that, you would consider?
Oh, the English.
The English?
Well, there was a lot of people who started coming over. There were the pirates.
Mm-hmm.
Then the English tried colonizing, and they were at war with the Spanish. Then they left, and then they came a few years later, and they officially took over the islands in the name of Queen Victoria.
Oh.
So, all right. So, could you give us like a chronological order, basically, of, all right, so we've already talked about how the pitch was the first ones recorded here in the island.
Yeah.
After the pitch, then there was the English, right?
Mm-hmm.
As in, English pirates, English privateers, just English colonizers. And then after the English, then came the...
Well, it was first the Pech, and then it was the pirates, and then it was English colonizers, and they went back, and then they came back and took the islands in the name of Queen Victoria.
So when they... Okay, I got you. So, and by pirates, I guess you mean like, Dutch pirates.
They were Dutch, they
English.
were English buccaneers, they would call themselves. That was Henry Morgan. He'd rather people call him a buccaneer than a pirate because it was more, I don't know, diplomatic, I guess.
I got you. Okay, so in his mind, he was like a hero,
Yeah.
I guess. I guess he probably was. I don't know.
He was looting with permissions.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how much you like pirates, if he's a hero or not.
Yeah.
I didn't know until I read your book about the story of Mr. John Coxon, which is, I mean, I just knew him as, the guy who did name Coxon Hole after. But I did not know that he, and I don't want to give away too much in your book, but I did not know that he actually kidnapped a bishop.
Oh yeah.
That was pretty cool when I read. I was like, this dude, he's crazy. He was crazy. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, he was very dangerous too.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I was gonna ask you on the question. I was gonna say, how many cultures primarily do you think there are on the island nowadays?
On the island, there's so many.
Yeah, I like to call us our little soup bowl. It's a good little soup bowl.
Yeah, no, it's a big old pot of jambalaya now.
A beautiful pot of McCoy. That's exactly what we are.
Yes.
And just read the book to find out what a McCoy mean, okay? Or what a McCoy is, y'all. Just right here. Read it.
Well, I would have to count them, but I mean, we have Spanish people from the mainland. We have the English, the white English speakers, the black English speakers, the mosquito people. We have the Garifunas, and we have a whole colony of Czech people here. I would say those for now, because there's French people, there's Italian people, American people, but they're not as organized as the Czech. Like the Czech have a Czech village, and that's for them.
Yeah. That is a very good way to put it, because whenever I'm talking to my guests and stuff, I'm just like, okay, I mentioned the first 5 you mentioned. I'm like, okay, and the 6th branch is like a number of expats here in the island. And I just kind of like included Czech in there, but I didn't really kind of put it the way you put it, where they're so organized. That's a really good way to put it. So I guess there is a 6th culture.
Yeah, I mean, they have restaurants, hotels. They have, they're in real estate. They're everywhere. They have their own community.
A good buddy of mine, actually, another fellow realtor is a Czech. Shout out Marek. He's a really cool guy. So anyhow, so there's a specific word that people usually use to refer to us, the white English speaking folks, or the English speaking folk in general, the caracoles, which is, it can mean different stuff in Spanish. It could mean either a snail or a conch or just a shell on the beach, maybe. Do you have anything theories, rumors, why we call caracoles?
There's two theories. There's only one that everyone accepts based on history. The one that everyone accepts is the fact that when the white English speakers came here, they were originally fishermen. They already came with, knowledge from England, from the Cayman Islands, from Jamaica. And so they installed their boats and they would go off and go get conchs and fish and lobster. But primarily it was conch. So whenever they would go to the mainland to sell it, they would go to Ceiba specifically. The Spanish people would be like, allá vienen los caracoles, the conchs are coming.
Yeah.
But they were talking about the actual conchs.
Not the people.
Yeah. And with time, it just became a nickname.
I got you. And this is also back in the days where, our ancestors only spoke English.
Yeah.
All right. Because my grandpa, for you guys who don't know, you guys will probably see him at some point. He's 97 this year. You met my grandpa.
Oh.
Mr. Nelson Jackson McNabb, the oldest.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
that's my grandpa, his great grandpa.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then you also, in your book, which is we're jumping ahead, y'all, but you actually also talked about another one of our uncles as well. Ray Kirkwood, the musician in Oak Ridge.
Yeah.
He was a married in uncle. He passed away not so long ago, but such a great person. He loved playing his guitar. Actually, my brother-in-law has a video of him, Mr. Jim Borden, and another gentleman. I didn't get the other guy's name, playing the guitar and singing in my aunt's house, and they were amazing. Like, at this age, I met Uncle Ray was probably maybe his 7th, and still playing amazing and singing amazing. So I could imagine that was pretty cool. But anyhow, I just thought I was just kind of putting that out there. You mentioned like 2 of our family members in the book, and I was like, woohoo! That was super cool, I guess. Anyhow, so we're gonna talk a little bit now, about your archaeological. And oh my gracious, I finally said that word good. Yeah, I was like practicing that word. I was like probably say it wrong now. Archaeological finds, like some of the yabadingdings. Now you want to tell the viewers, you want to kind of specify what the word yabadingding mean, where it came from, and then we can talk a little bit about like some of your favorite ones maybe and stuff like that.
Well, the word yabadingdings, there's a theory that the Black English speakers named it that because they had specific words for different things. Like, for example, duppies.
Yeah.
Duppies is spirit. Duppies is a word that came from the Black English speakers. And that word actually comes from Ghana. It means spirit in Ghana as well. Spirits from the dead people or spirits from anyone that was, like specifically here, they used it for... like the pirates, whenever they would bury their treasure, they would mark a tree with an X, and they would kill someone from their